everyone, and welcome. Call the meeting to order. First item is approval of agenda. Or anybody has anything to add?
Could we add on to new business or other business, Tittle Road?
The what?
Tittle Road?
Tittle.
Should I do Tittle? Tittle Road. So that would be what, 9? Would be 9I?
Yeah. Nine. Tittle. I would think, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
I so move to approve the agenda.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Conflict of interest declaration. Does anybody around the table have a conflict of interest with any item on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll go on to presentation, I guess, and there's none. So we'll go on to adoption of minutes. And the first one is Planning Advisory Committee of October the 3rd, 2013.
Second?
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the Planning Advisory. All those in favour signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. A regular council meeting of February the 11th.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favour signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. And the Committee of the Whole of February 25th.
Second.
All those in favour signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. I should add, I forgot to mention first that we have regrets from Lucien Leblanc, couldn't be here tonight, and Nicole Albright. And Junior Murphy also. Business arising from the minutes. There's Municipal Administration Building. Do you want to speak on that, CEO?
Yes, I don't have a written update on that. We met actually, a small group of, the building committee made up of staff met this morning. And we agreed on how we were going to approach the gathering of information on behalf of council. So we spoke about, a lot of the discussion was around accessibility and the problems that we have with accessibility here. So a lot of the focus around what our options might be in order to solve that problem will be brought to a local contractor for consideration. We'll bring them in and have a little chat around what potential options there are. I think we came to an agreement that, I guess a staff agreement that if an elevator was in fact the option for this building, in order to rectify the accessibility problem, then in reality what we're actually looking to do is to renovate and expand this building, because of the cost associated with actually doing that. And so what we're trying to do and what we will be doing for council is to analyze what our options are around reconstruction, new construction versus reconstruction of this property, the approximate costs of doing both at a general level. And we'll also get a contractor to come in and do a contractor's assessment of the type of work that would be necessary here. I think we've talked about the cost of actually renovating in the past. I think our 2009 report talks about renovation, but that would be to do nothing but bring it to code. And so those costs have been discussed, but we're trying to get a little bit more information around the details of that, because we think that there might be other options in order to address some of the deficiencies. And then, of course, we're also looking at providing you with the how much money we have put aside earmarked for retrofit or new construction. We know that there was a commitment back in the early 2000s for $100,000 a year for 10 years, so that would suggest that there's at least $1 million that has been earmarked. However, as I noted on more than one occasion, council has made that commitment but has not earmarked it specifically to reconstruct the building. It was put aside for that purpose, but it doesn't mean it cannot be repurposed. So I get the question a lot, how much money is there available for this reconstruction? And the answer is it depends on how you interpret the motions that have been made, because we continue to transfer monies into the reserve even past the 10-year period. Finally, we are going to look into asking either the municipality of St. Mary's or the consultant who did the Green Globes work around that building to make a presentation to council. So we do have a fairly detailed report around how St. Mary's, municipality of St. Mary's built their building. And of course, under the Green Globe certification, you get 100% gas tax funding. So just trying to line up all the options for you. It's going to take a while. It's going to be, I think John, our Public Works Director, is quite right in saying that the planning process around this is probably 12 months.
Yeah.
So we're I mean, in terms of, and maybe not the entire 12 months to understand what we want, but I mean the process is can be quite lengthy around, because there's a lot of options that we need to iron out and choose the direction that we want to go. And we've also said that we were going to engage the community in this process. So that, of course, we have to factor that in. So this is a process. Yeah. So so we'll want to. So that's the update I have now. So we have work to do. We now have our marching orders at the staff level, and of course, what we'll do is I will advise council when we meet next, and I certainly don't have. I mean, I think the staff will be meeting around operational matters, but if there are councillors who want to get engaged in that process, like from an informational perspective, you're more than welcome to do that. Our next meeting will be April 15th at 10 a.m. And so what we'll be doing moving forward is providing you with summaries as we continue our work.
Okay, good.
So
Thank
we'll
you.
try to meet monthly.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any questions? Danny?
Just a question regarding the renovating this one as opposed to building. We had talked about that building a new one, Green Globe, gas tax might be. Is there any possibility that the gas tax could pay for, or we could get the money through gas tax for retrofitting this one? And if not, I mean the difference in price.
Yeah.
If it was cheaper to renovate, fix this building up as opposed to new building, we still have to look at the fact that if we can use a gas tax, then is it, you know what I mean? Like we really have to look at both options. I think if we can't get the gas tax for this, I think we still have to look at the other option as well.
I suppose that's part of what the information that you're looking for. And
We haven't eliminated the possibility that the gas tax that we could get a certification for an old building. We haven't eliminated that possibility entirely.
Okay.
But I'd be extremely surprised at this point, based on what we've done, that the Green Globe certification could be placed on a building like this. So the reality is that, and I'm really not convinced that a retrofit would be cheaper than new either. But let's assume that it was. We'd have to do two things. We'd have to, one, assess the life cycle cost of both options, because let's assume for a moment the renovation be cheaper. The life cycle of this building is not as long as the life cycle of a new building, and so we'd have to. It's a decision that has long ramifications. So we have to look at the life cycle cost of each option. And I find the use of the gas tax a fairly attractive option, but we are not 100% sure at this time, still early to tell, whether or not there would be considerable increases in the cost as a consequence of building at that higher level certification. So we are still in the preliminary stages. I would say I'd like to be able to answer that question clearly by the next meeting around whether gas tax could in any way possible be used on a retrofit. And I think that's an important first question to clear off.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I guess in looking at long-term, the Green Globe building would be more efficient.
I think I could say
Probably in the long run, save money on heating and whatever.
I'm fairly confident in saying that
Looking
that
at
would be the
long-term,
case.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
You find that out.
Yeah. I know it. No question.
Oh, yes. Charette?
Question for our CEO was, the motion that was made for $100,000 a year for 10 years, was that made, obviously, was it 10 years ago, 9 years ago?
14, 15?
It's 14 or 15.
15
Yeah.
years that that was made? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, okay.
Was it for 10?
It was for 10. Yes.
I didn't remember that, but I knew. Yeah.
Yes.
He was,
Was that right?
He was our clerk then, yeah.
In 1998, that was the initial conditions report for this building. And at the time, it was determined by council and staff that the money was not in place in reserves to pay for retrofit. And so they decided to start putting the money away at that time. And I believe it was 99 or 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not too good on dates. I don't know. I don't have exact years and,
They're all running together as you get older.
yeah. Okay, thank you. Next item is Warden's report. You all had a chance to read it. Any questions or comments? I usually don't report on things that the CAO reports on, so he's looking at the other side. Councillors' reports. Anybody have a report to make? Yes, Deputy Warden.
Just wanted to report today, as I was traveling through West Pamlico, I seen that Miro and Surratt were at the old the tennis court next to the Pamlico School, and they were doing some work around there. And on the way back home, I stopped. There was the excavator was still there, but there wasn't anybody working, and I stopped and walked over there and had a look. So they cleaned a lot of I guess the shrub and the alders and stuff that were around the fence, and it's starting to look a lot nicer. I'm not sure if they were done or not, but anyway, regardless, it was nice to see that piece of work being done, and something that we can maybe look forward to in the summer. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Bork?
Nikhil, concerning Nikhil, everything was going good, I guess, until this week. They had a flood. But I guess everything is under control, and staff is amazing at Nikhil, because with all the renovations and all that, their morale is really good. And with this disaster, in the kitchen, the water going through, and everything's fine, and things are under control, and they still have a high morale of everything. So I just want to mention that.
Thank you. Councillor Muse?
Just want to say I attended the Kentville Fire Department's, their ratepayers meeting last night. They're looking at a 3-cent fire, I guess a special fire tax for purchase. Unfortunately, there wasn't a whole lot of the ratepayers there except the fire.
That's
the fire people.
normal.
Yeah. So I guess the consensus was that if they're not here, they must be, because they all knew. It was advertised. It was advertised well, and they all knew. And I guess the consensus is if they weren't there, I guess they must be okay with it.
Yeah.
So anyway, basically that's it that I have to report.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no other lights on, I'll go to the Chief Administrative Officer's report. You want to give us some insight?
High level.
High level?
One of the one of the things that isn't in the report is regarding the a meeting I had in Quinnen. Councillor Albright was also in attendance. And they are looking at the potential of putting a rate in place. They've got a number of things that they're looking to do in Quinnen, and I just want to inform council of that. The rate that they were looking at was fairly substantial. So we went to get a bit of an explanation around what their plans are. And so we left the meeting. This was a meeting actually just between, it wasn't a public meeting, it was a meeting between the fire volunteers and Nicole and myself, Councillor Albright. And so we asked them to do a little homework, and we have a little homework to do on our own. But you know, the situation in Quinnen is that they don't have a lot. It's a smaller district, so they don't have a lot of assessment in order to generate any sort of considerable income. So unlike other, you know, larger, you know, I'll give an example. Pubnico, for example, I think has a 3 cent. I'll use one that I can remember. A 4.5 cents in Eelbrook will generate about $40,000 per year. So that's 4.5 cents. Well, in Quinnen, you'd need almost 3 times that rate, and of course, that's problematic because you know, our highest rate right now is 7 cents per 100 in Wedgeport, and it's for a very specific purpose and has a limited life. Used to be 11 cents for the building. So, but everybody was on board with that because they understood what it was for. A building is a very unique, extraordinary expense. So Quinnen will be providing a list, a priority list of what they require. And so I think council will, and I don't know whether the rate will be put in place this year, but they are looking at a rate, and it could be as early as this year. So we're gathering information. One of the requests was to have the municipality consider whether or not that they would participate financially in their situation. So that's a bit of a new request. Typically, what we've done is had the fire departments lead when they have to purchase a vehicle for their area. But that being said, both vehicles for Quinnen are almost 30 years old each. So they have some interesting challenges. So I just think that, I just want to bring that to your attention. I don't have a lot at this time, very preliminary information at this time. But some of our budget deliberations should potentially look at, you know, our current operational grants for fire and where we should be going now and into the future around that. Again, I don't want to make any presumptions around what that might look like. I'm just suggesting that they have they've brought some concerns. So anyway, that being said, so that's not in the report. That's why I spent so much time on it just now. Most of the areas that I focused on were revolved around a lot of your priority items. I should note that the REN had their first meeting as a board last week, and very encouraging group, and that's should be very interesting. The other item I think that of concern that is fairly new is the fact that the Destination Southwest Nova Scotia has called an emergency meeting tomorrow night. And I don't know, you know, there's a lot of speculation around what that might be, but some of the board members of YASTA, including the warden, will be attending this meeting, and it'll be to talk about the future of Destination Southwest Nova and whether they have a plan for the future or whether the future is now and it's done. I don't know. However, you know, we should know that YASTA has asked many times to be an RTIA, which is what Destination is, which is to say that it would get core provincial funding for marketing initiatives. So currently, YASTA does not get any provincial core funding for that purpose. So I think there's some anticipation, maybe hopefully some news around that could potentially benefit YASTA around this, what could be an unfortunate announcement or meeting tomorrow. You should just be aware of that, because that will have some implications potentially on future year budget. Otherwise, I would say that we continue to focus on our regional enterprises, and particularly the Airport Corporation, and in light of our priority setting sessions last week, this was identified as an area that we need to put more work in to determine, you know, a couple things. One is to manage the investment, and the second is to begin negotiations around the agreement that will come to a close at the end of next fiscal year. And unless there are other questions, I'll defer to questions and answer them rather than go through each section.
It's a very good report from all the officers, and I don't have any questions. Any questions?
We definitely kept updated, that's for sure.
Oh, pardon?
I have to compliment staff on that, because
What was that, Richard?
I said we're definitely kept up to date with all
Oh,
the
yes.
emails we get and the reports, and we know what's going on all the time, so.
Yeah.
I'd like to compliment Alan and Chris and all the heads of staff for that, because all of us are leading busy lives, and it's hard to be here and talk to people, and
Yeah, it's very good. You're right.
it helps when you come and you know what's going on.
That's right.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
We'll pass that along to staff. It's very, very nice, very kind. And you all know that anytime you want to come and talk to any of us, you're welcome to do that.
It's also online for the general public, I don't know how many follow it, but
Yeah.
it's readily available now compared to what it used to be like years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Thank you for that, Richard.
Thank you.
I agree wholeheartedly. Now we'll go to other business for decision and discussion. Port of Yarmouth, Ferry Terminal. We have some kind of a,
This was put on the agenda as a notice of motion from Councillor Donaldson.
It wasn't a notice of motion, it was.
Sorry.
For discussion, because at some point, but there's, what, 4 or 5 members of this council on Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission, and one of the items that's gonna be on the agenda very shortly, I assume, but with the ferry terminal going on and assessing the Domtex building to see what we're gonna do with that, and the medical clinics being pulled out of the Industrial Commission to form their own so-called commission of some type. And but the Port of Yarmouth is gonna have to be dealt with, and they're throwing around the idea of amalgamating the ferry terminal with the port assets. And I believe the school board building is part of that.
yes.
So at some point, Argyle's gonna have to decide on whether we wanna be part of that port commission. And the main assets of that port commission are gonna be the wharfs and their parking lots and whatnot. So we're gonna have to decide as a group whether we wanna be part of that. And I don't wanna have the responsibility with, I assume the other members on that commission don't wanna have the responsibility of making that decision without having council approve a direction on which way to go on that. So at some point, we're gonna have to look at that, and perhaps we're gonna need some financial figures or whatever to make an informed decision. But personally, my gut feeling is I don't wanna own wharfs in Yarmouth, or I don't want Argyle municipality owning wharfs in Argyle or in Yarmouth, when we have a dozen or more of our own that we don't fund. They're funded through port committees and small crafts and harbor, and primarily any funding comes from federal government. So we're gonna have to decide. So I don't know the proper procedure we should take to get to that decision, but maybe with some help from staff, we can get there and make an informed decision.
Yeah.
Was that clear enough?
Councillor Surratt?
A couple of things maybe I could question, when they decided to move the Port of Yarmouth and the ferry terminal together, it must have been the night that I had to leave early to go to a meeting of the bridge committee.
It was just a suggestion brought up by one of the CAOs, I believe, for the town, wasn't it?
Yes.
So
So
I must have
it's-
left, it must have been that night, that's the only time I
Yeah,
left early.
it's early days. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just an idea being thrown around.
Okay, I was under the understanding, and correct me, those that are on that committee, that they were looking, or we were looking, the Industrial Commission was looking at just the Port of Yarmouth, maybe to be set on itself, in a committee itself, with some of the people that are in the fishing industry, that, that was the last that I had understood, is they were gonna, I'm not gonna name any names, wouldn't be fair, but they had 5 or 6 names, they had named that was just to take care of the ports. So something must have happened, again, that night when I left, that somebody threw this.
It was just
an
idea thrown out.
Okay, but there's nothing that's advanced any further than that, okay?
Not to my knowledge, is there anything new on that front?
No, I think, conceptually, the port assets and the ferry terminal, when you think about them, they're located, near each other. And so there's a lot of what I would call economies of scale around the management of both facilities simultaneously. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the port assets need to be owned by the municipality of of Argyle. It doesn't necessarily mean that. In the presentation done by CAO Gushu, he had presented the governance model that he would suggest, and what he was suggesting around the ferry terminal was that the governance look very similar to the REN. So, in other words, that the political body, the governing body, would be on the side, making sure that a management board, based on entrepreneurs and people interested in running the port or the ferry, were managing their staff person. So he had suggested that model. I think that was well received. But then the other piece was the ferry terminal and the port potentially being in one organization,
Yes,
right? And so he certainly didn't suggest that was going to happen, but he's suggesting that he's going to bring information back to the Industrial Commission that would look at that as an option.
I wonder where the school board building fits into the ports either, because those are not economy of scales or the same idea. Because the school board building is in that part of the port assets.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. So certainly, when as Councillor Dawson was saying, we're not interested in really in the ports of Yarmouth, but are we interested in running, their school board building? So with the ferry terminal, from your understanding, ferry terminal, the ports, and the school board building, that would be all, could be set as one then?
Yes, the school board
And also
building.
the school board building would
The
be?
school board building is considered part of the Port of Yarmouth assets. Because what happened was, back at the time that the transfer occurred from the federal government to the community, there was an amount of money, a divestiture fund, that followed it. And so that divestiture fund was utilized to some extent, or to all extent, to construct this building. And so that was a way that the management at the time wanted to generate additional revenues for the port.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
what it has done in some way is it has locked in the money in some way into the asset, right? And so there was a
port,
mortgage
yeah.
attached to that asset,
Yeah.
which is now at about 470,000.
About.
The asset was constructed for 1.9 million. So the value is probably close to that, give or take.
Yep.
And so that's being rented currently to Tri-County School Board, and I think there's 3.5 years that
I
remain.
believe you're right.
And so the mortgage was refinanced to occur, I guess, to be refinanced at the same time as that lease was to come up for renewal. So there is an asset there, and there's also, of course, berthage and all the other things
That's
that will
why.
come with a port. and and we are in the process of putting together financial information along with to assist you in the discussion. So I'm probably close to being completed that piece, but I'd welcome any suggestion from council around what other information that you would request staff to collect in order for you to have an informed decision in front of you.
Thank you. Deputy?
Just for clarification, so Industrial Commission in Argyle, Municipality of Argyle is part of the Industrial Commission. I guess, do we have a percentage in the Industrial Commission? So there's a certain percentage?
33%.
33%. All right, so when it comes to the Port of Yarmouth, does the Municipality of Argyle, what's the relationship between the Industrial Commission and the Port Authority?
The port assets were initially transferred to a third party, but then were flipped into the Industrial Commission after that.
Okay.
The reasoning behind that, the previous management gave was tax, because it would not be taxed. Would not be taxed inside the Industrial Commission. However, when that happened, despite the fact that the Municipality of Argyle said they did not want to own the assets of the port, they are owner of the port because it came in through the Industrial Commission, and because you are 33% owner of the Industrial Commissioner, ipso facto, you are owner of the port at 33%.
And the school board building also?
That is correct.
Which is part of the port.
Which is part of the port.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure to kind of wrap my head around exactly what the relationship was with all three bodies, I guess. So.
Well, it's a complicated creation, and of course, this council has already agreed that it wished to restrict its ownership of the ferry terminal to 20%. And so if, in fact, the Industrial Commission agrees that it's proper to roll the port assets into that same organization, and if you agree that that is, in fact, what you want to do as well, there is a difference in ownership there that would occur, right? So you would be going from 33 1/3 to 20% if, in fact, that was what you agreed to do. Now, you may agree to be at 0% and have no ownership, but I think this council should be open to the idea that there might, in fact, be a shared human resource person that would do port operations and ferry terminal operations. So you may not, in fact, own the port assets, but there might, in fact, be synergies around hiring one person to manage the entire inventory or asset. You know, if you look at the marginal wharf and all that, there's already people that do that, but the ferry terminal will require a manager, and so that person could potentially do both. And so we should probably be open to that concept because because that would have its financial benefits for everyone around keeping costs manageable and having the right people in the right place. So that doesn't mean you have to own the assets of the port, but it may mean that we have to, if you decide not to own the port assets, you might also have another decision around, well, how is the HR going to work? How is the staff person going to work when this person actually does the work for the ferry or for the port, or both? So that's...
Councillor Donaldson?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we gotta understand that we are decommissioning the Industrial Commission. It's a long, slow process, but it is being done, and the the industrial parks is probably the first thing that was taken out and given back to respective municipalities, and now the medical centers. So this is just all part of an ongoing process. So we got to, so we have to decide what we want to be part of and what we don't want to be part of. That's all. And so I just wanted to inform the rest of the councillors not on the commission that this is an issue that will be coming up. And first is to your question about information and finance. I don't think there's any real rush yet because the ferry terminal is priority, and in the old cotton mill building is going to need a lot of attention for making decisions on what happens there. So information is always good, but I mean, I don't think it's going to be on front and center anytime soon. So we'll have to wait and see what the CAO for Yarmouth comes back with, and get more information that way and go from there. It was just to make people aware of what's going
Yes,
on.
good. Thank you. That's a good idea.
Just one other thing, if it's possible. There's,
That's right.
Just something to let you know also, and the situation of the Domtex building, they went in there, and Richard or Kathy can correct me on this. They went in to work one morning, and part of the roof of the old hot mill was sagged down. I don't even, had it actually sagged down, or the roof was ripped off,
They used the phrase blown off.
blown off. Is the
Stand like a 20 by 40
yeah, big.
section piece, something.
That was blown off. So, I mean, there's no money to fix that at the moment, or, or we'll have to put money in. But it's a dire situation in that place, and we're struggling to keep our head above water. Actually, we're not keeping our head above water to pay the bills at Domtex. That part is not paying. It's going in the hole every year. So that's a serious situation.
Unless a
Thank
lot,
you.
unless a lot of money is spent in the short term, the fire marshal probably closed the building anyhow, and there was a lot of electrical damage done when this happened. The commercial elevator that's needed to get to the second and third floor is out of service now, and that's.
The water got in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's not working, so it's quite a mess.
Thank you. Okay, let's go on to council priorities. Next item.
so,
You want to?
I can start.
You
Yep.
on that?
So, thank you very much to all of council for meeting with myself and Chris and indulging me around trying to set priorities for council. So what Chris has done for you is presented in a very similar format as last year what came out of that meeting. And so I guess what I'll ask, because not all of council was able to attend that particular meeting, I should assure you that your input prior to that was factored in because we had asked you to participate in the process via email around your priorities, and so those were all discussed. I will say that the three priorities that council has established quite clearly, it was quite clear there were three, were economic development, doctor recruitment, and tourism. And those three things continue to be top priority or hot topics for this for this council. So what we also did in that document, if for those of you who were not able to attend, we aligned some of the priorities that we're working on now with what you would like to achieve as council. So what we said was, what are the 3 or the 5 things that council wants to see worked on or completed? And then we said, okay, well, what is it that staff is actually working on in order to meet that demand? Okay, so that document was distributed. We had a very good conversation around some priorities, and actually some things came out through the discussion that hadn't been identified in the pre-process. And one of them, and what I'm referring to, is actually under community improvement, which is the 4th priority in this document. I'll come back to that. I'll try to do this in order. So economic development, what we've established from council is that council wishes to continue its investment in the Argyle Economic Development Committee. Now, we really haven't spent a lot of money there yet, but we've spent a lot of time there. And so the priorities are beginning to surface, and that will result in us having to invest some dollars to move these initiatives forward. So that is both for the economic development and also Exit 33 committees. There's 2 committees, one specifically for Tusket, one for the broader picture of economic development in Argyle. And I can tell you that their discussions are around, they talk a lot about tourism because they recognize it as an economic development driver in the region. Not a massive one as the lobster fishery would be, but it is a way that we can diversify our economy, especially in light of the ferry. So that was a priority. I felt like they want to capitalize on the opportunity of the ferry returning. The other was to do a master plan around Tusket, to do a plan to change the landscape, the zoning, to encourage a more clustering of residential and perhaps more economic development in certain regions. And finally, we're in the very preliminary stages of talking about mink and how we can potentially find locations that would be potentially ideal for business and not necessarily a nuisance area for our residents. So that is in the very early stages. So there's a lot of talk about signage at both committees. And so they recognize that there's an opportunity to do wayfinding for tourism and also to improve business-related signage, that would probably be a partnership with the Chambre de Commerce d'Argyle, for example, or with local businesses that would wish to purchase signs as part of a broader project. So I would, again, preliminary planning, but I would equate it to what we do for Doers and Dreamers. The advertisement in Doers and Dreamers, what we do is we invest a certain amount as a municipality to support all tourism stakeholders, and then we say, okay, those tourism stakeholders that want to buy a little piece, here's the fee, and so it's a partnership. And so the signage, I would envision that a business sign that had multiple businesses advertised would have a similar arrangement. So that's what we'll be focusing on in the next probably 12 to 15 months in terms of economic development. Of course, the establishment of the REN. I'm actually heavily involved with that one, and so we'll be actually meeting with the HR hiring firm this week, and that thing is moving. So I would expect by May we'll have a CEO, and the ball will start rolling there. So that's under economic development. Tourism, I think we've already spoken about, but we wanted to get an understanding around whether you continue to support a regional tourism model, and what we heard is yes. Council continues to support a regional model, and so of course, that doesn't mean that we don't support Bon Temps and the local initiatives, but I think Bon Temps is really focusing in on the stargazing. They had two priorities. They're really looking at stargazing right now as their priority. So, and they're applying for funds, third party, and hopefully they'll find success. So we'll continue to work with Bon Temps as they wish us to work with them. Transportation, I had already mentioned the airport in my CAO's report. Obviously, ferry restoration is a big priority as well. We have people engaged on our behalf and on the behalf of NSIFP to move this forward, and it is moving forward. There's some good momentum going on there. The construction is coming along, and it looks, positive signs around the terminal. I haven't seen it lately, but I think there's a lot of work that's been done there. So the community improvement, I said I'd come around that. That's community beautification. We always talk about this, we always use the terms dangerous and unsightly. We wanted to maybe throw that a little bit more positively and say community beautification. This was a priority that was brought up in the discussions, was really well received, and it really what we saw that to mean was a variety of things. One would be to do proper cleanup of certain key locations that have been problematic over the years, so that staff has heard that from council, that is a rising priority, and you guys are hearing more and more complaints around some properties that are just unacceptable. They're in unacceptable conditions at this time. So that will be, not that we were not focused, but we will focus more time and energy in that area. The other two that had been mentioned previously related to infrastructure, sidewalks and streetlights. So, and then there was another around the tennis courts and other recreation infrastructure. That's not here because we felt like that's a continuation of the priority from the prior year. We could certainly add it here as well. What we say about streetlights and sidewalks is that we're really in the research mode. Like, how are we actually going to do that, if we're going to do that, and how is the community going to be engaged in that process? Like, we're not actually saying that in 12 months we're going to be able to put sidewalks and streetlights. What we're saying is, look, let's do policy review, let's look at what other municipal units are doing around streetlights and sidewalks, how is it funded? Let's re-examine that, let's update our understanding of how that's working in other places, and then let's decide how we want to proceed. I think I'd mentioned in another meeting that one of the things we may want to do is get an active transportation strategy before we start constructing sidewalks, so that we can be strategic around actually creating loops for transportation. So, and perhaps those investments, you know, sidewalks, as I mentioned, would actually attract gas tax support. So that would be probably a question that we would delve into a little bit deeper once we get into the capital planning. And then finally, the youth. There was a lot of very good talk around what we've done with the youth engagement piece, and continuation around senior support, senior programming. I don't know that you noticed a lot more seniors programming going on in recreation right now than there ever was. And we're trying to attract the 24-year-olds to stay or come back. But we're also cognizant of the fact that we have an aging population, and we need to make sure that the seniors are active and are finding ways to engage in the community. So
Is that so?
that wasn't specifically that wasn't aimed at anyone in particular. So that is a really long summary of the document. So you really have you don't necessarily have to approve it today, but I think you know, first we'd like to understand that we got it right, if we got it right, and if there are changes to be made, we can certainly do that. This is your document, even if it's prepared by staff. It is prepared by staff based on your input. And so
Well, we had some real good discussions and a lot of input at the meeting last week, so looks like a good report to me. But yes, Deputy Warden.
I just saw, you jarred my memory, CAO Muse, when you talked about the Chambre de Commerce, the Argyle Chamber of Commerce, and actually I'd be remiss not to mention this because there's the president and one of the other board members that's here, but at our last meeting we were talking about a project that we could partner with the municipality. You mentioned the signage, it could be something else, but just for the rest of the of council, if you have any ideas or anything that we could partner with the Chambre de Commerce, you know, make sure to bring them forward, and you know, by partnering together, I think we could, you know, achieve a lot more and make the Chamber of Commerce, the Chambre de Commerce, more active with the municipality, and you know, just, I guess, strengthen numbers. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So are you ready to approve the priorities list, or as presented, or? Yes, Councillor Surratt.
I'd like to move that we accept the council priorities as presented here tonight.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Donaldson. More questions or comments? Yes.
Just that, I guess as I look on through the list, and I approved this list, I helped work on it, and you know, I guess what all comes to, when you look at the list and how important economic development is, you know, if we can achieve economic development, a lot of the other stuff underneath is going to be achieved also, because you know, you got, it'll all flow. So, but anyway, that's all I wanted to add to that.
Councillor Donaldson?
Yes, on the motion, you called it the council's priority list. I think we should put staff in there too, because staff had a big part in this. So the priority list developed by council and staff, would that be all right with the
The
mover?
document says council priorities, that's why I said that.
Okay.
it's up to you.
I'd like to leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah, no,
The document did say
I
staff.
still second it.
Okay. All those in favour signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Highway 203 road condition. Yes. what,
Is some letter that we received.
yeah, the letter received from a resident on the 203, I guess, or near that area. Yes, Donaldson?
This isn't the first time that this issue's come up with this highway. Have we ever received any well, I do remember receiving a response, but it wasn't all that favorable. Years ago, before the tin mine, that used to be like a fire access road. And then when they opened the tin mine, they upgraded the road and paved it to have access to the port of Shelburne, where some of the product was gonna be shipped from. Since the mine's closed, it's almost like they've virtually done nothing with that road or maintained it. I'm wondering if the provincial government would be willing to give us like what they plan to do to this road, because it seems like they're just letting it get bad enough that eventually people will stop using it, but is that their plan that they're not telling us, or do they have plans to fix it up? I mean, it's a real mess. It truly is, so.
No.
It's,
We can't answer that. We can't tell you what they're not telling us, but
no, but should we
We-
write a letter
we-
asking them is what I'm
maybe we
saying. I
should,
mean,
yeah.
based on this letter here, I mean,
Yes.
we should get some kind of response back
Yeah.
for people that are more really concerned
we
with
have
this road.
a world-class resort there that, people can have a hard time traveling to.
So, I don't know.
Councillor Muse?
Yeah, just on this, being in my district, I'm getting complaints on that road quite a bit. I did go and drive that road. I had heard a lot about it, but I had never seen it firsthand. And I can't see how cars get through there, honestly. I was told that this winter, even the plow was picking up part of the road and just rolling it up, like because it was so uneven and whatever that
Yeah.
he had to turn around and go. I mean, it would lift pieces of asphalt right up and just leave him there. He'd look in his mirror and the thing was still up. He'd have to go back and make sure that the car wasn't going to hit that. It is not a road that's used a whole lot, and I don't know if that's why the department is letting it go the way they are, but nevertheless, it is being used, and apparently there are some. They're still hauling logs through there. They're still, and if you go on Google to see your shortest distance, if you're going to Trout Point Lodge and you don't know, that's what's going to be your shortest distance. And what's happening is people are coming in thinking that's where they have to go, not knowing at all what the road is like. And they end up in that mess where some of them have damaged their vehicles. I mean, we bottomed out in there, even being careful. I can't imagine trying to drive that road after dark, where you couldn't see ahead what you're going to be hitting. I think we should write a letter, even if we have before. I think it's a good idea to not to just let it go because they haven't put it on their priority list, but I think we need to keep pushing for that.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, then it's forgotten, and just doing once and letting it go, I don't think is an option. I think we have to continue after them for that road. They've got to do something. Either
Put up a gate?
put some gates, shut her down. I mean, like Councillor Donaldson said, that road before the tin mine was a fire road. There was a gate. There was a gate right there at there used to be a snowmobile club or something, and there was a gate there because I think it was owned by Natural Resources. And then, of course, when they did the tin mine, I was working with the department at the time. We upgraded that road that was supposed to be the highway grade, like because of the heavy traffic. I have no idea what happened that it didn't last. Something definitely went wrong in the construction of that road. But I think we should definitely write a letter and push this to do something with that road.
Do you make that a motion?
Pardon me?
Do you make that a
I
motion?
can certainly make that a motion.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments or questions? If not, all those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Summer staff employees. CAO, that's the CAO to give
So
us a-
we ask council to consider this every year before we actually get into the budget, and the reasoning is to I guess first of all let you know how many summer staff people will be hiring this year. Is actually one less compared to last year, and the second piece would be to engage, or I guess with this approval, the recreation coordinator director goes after funding to support as many positions as possible. So what you'll see is that in 2014 we're budgeting 66,855. I've rounded. That is for 17 students. That particular day camp generates revenues between $25,000 and $28,000, depending on participation. So part of that part of that money is returned via service fees. Obviously, if we're gonna hit 30, that's a little less than 50%. And so the concept has always been with the day camp that it is a partially subsidized service in order to make sure it's affordable to all parents in our community, and it's still extremely well attended. Now we've gotten rid of the circulation day camp, as you know, a couple of years ago, and that was mostly due to really not having a stable location. And we're participating. The participation is still very good. So I would recommend that this be approved based on the director of recreation's recommendation.
Second.
Yeah, I guess normally we approve this so we can start looking at hiring, and
Yes.
so you can't wait for the grants because it'd be too late.
Right, so the grant applications are now, and so what happens is we generate, like I said, about 27 in revenues, but
Yeah.
that's from day camp revenues. We also anticipate, 8 to, depending on how successful we are, 8 to maybe 12,000. We used to get more. That would be subsidies that would further offset that cost.
Yes.
So all told, it's probably 50% funded year to year.
We have a motion on the floor. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Tusket signs request. This comes from within here, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Muse.
This comes from our Exit 33 committee, development committee. We are, right now, our priority is signing, as CO Muse had said. We're working, trying to see what we can do for signing. Brenda has taken a trip around just to see what signs. We're promoting Exit 33. We're at this point, because it is the main entry into the municipality if you're coming on the highway. And she went around taking pictures of signs, and she discovered that on Trunk 3 there is no Village of Tusket. We're promoting Tusket, but you can be driving coming from Arcadia, and it never says that you're in Tusket. And you're coming from the Glenwood exit, and there's no sign back in SAR saying that you're in Tusket. Now, what she's asking is that apparently she called, she spoke to someone with the department, I'm not sure who, but they told her that we needed to write a letter requesting these signs. I would say that we probably should. However, I remember having Tusket signs there before,
Yeah.
and I think they're just gone.
Correct.
And if that's the case, then they don't have to be approved anymore, just have to be replaced. But we're not 100% sure if that's the case. So what I would say is that we write a letter to the department and make sure that they know what we're looking for. If they're not 100% sure where the Tusket line is, Alex can tell them exactly where that should be. But I don't think that's a problem, because if you're going towards Glenwood, yes, our sign is there, so obviously your Tusket sign should be opposite. And coming from the other way, going the other way, Pleasant Lake sign is there. So I honestly believe that they're just missing. It's not something that hasn't been there. But I would like to make a motion that we write a letter again and just to the Yarmouth department, doesn't have to go, that we write a letter asking that those signs be
Replaced?
either replaced or installed or whatever, and that wondering if that could be done as quickly as
ASAP.
ASAP.
Okay, that's your
It's just,
motion.
it's just a matter of ordering the signs, or they may even have them there. I don't know what the problem is. But, when Brenda told me that there wasn't any signs, I said, well, yeah, they're there, because I remember seeing them, I'm
Yeah.
sure. But you don't look at those.
Yeah,
You're driving, I'm not looking for the sign Tusket.
no.
Anyway, I would like to make that motion, please.
I'll second that. And on that, I assume, and I could be wrong, that the Tusket sign is probably in somebody's university dorm. There's a good chance it's probably moved locations, and it's probably visible somewhere, but not at the right place, so. But I'll second your motion.
A mover and a seconder to replace the signs, the Tusket signs. All those in favour signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Next item. I think I'm gonna step down and let you take this over.
All right.
I'll stay here and listen for a change.
Okay, just so I make sure I know where we are. So I'll be sharing now, this is 9F, which is the Warden Stipend. That's why I got he's given me the chair. All right, so just to give you a little bit of background, in March of 2008, Council approved an increase of 3.1 on the Council stipends effective April 1st. And according to the Council's previous decision, it increased annual based on CPI. Then in January, we freezed all the stipends. Anyway, just to come back to this, I guess we're debating and talking about the warden's stipend. I think CAUs, you have some more in-depth information for us.
I think the council, in recognition for the warden and the amount of work that he does, he's been, council had asked staff to take a look at, whether or not that stipend was market or comparative to others in similarly sized regions. And so we did that work, and it's attached actually as the second page, and so what you'll see, a lot of colors, but we've looked at different municipalities and towns, looked at the population, and looked at the salary comparisons. So as you see, we've identified, and we also established an average based on similarly sized units. The average stipend was $31,764, and so I think the current stipend is $27,132, which is our current stipend for our warden. And so I think all the information that you've asked us to capture is attached. You'll see there's some low and high all over the board in terms of, so I think some of the higher population, like for example Chester has a population of almost 11,000, while the salary is 37. That's obviously driving the average upwards, and then we have some that are at 22,000 that are driving the opposite way. And basically, there's no recommendation. This is entirely a decision of council, and we just, I don't know if there's anything else, any other questions or clarifications that council wishes to ask. I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Any questions around the table? Now, this CA Muse, this would be, of course, for next year's budget.
Correct. If the council wishes to effect a change, obviously would have to do that by motion. That could be effective tomorrow, or it could be effective April 1st. I think the intention was that this work would be done in advance of April 1st, which was the coming fiscal year. So from that perspective, that's entirely up to council. It can make a decision on that today. It can defer that decision, and it can debate it whichever you wish. It is certainly. I should note that the warden has stepped down. Establishing council, and the solicitor can concur or disagree. Establishing council and warden stipend does not put you in a conflict of interest. It's actually your choice. It's actually your decision to make. However, the warden, obviously by his stepping down, has chosen not to discuss it or in any way, shape, or form influence. Typically, we do this as a group.
It's not a conflict of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Correct.
In my view.
So it's specifically, so he is not in conflict in this particular discussion, but obviously chooses not to participate, and that's his choice, but he is not in conflict. Just want to make that clear. Because the stipends for warden and council is A, a public decision, and B, your decision to make, and it doesn't put you in conflict.
There is nothing in the legislation, either the Municipal Government Act or the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, which prevents any councillor, whatever position, either as a regular councillor or administrative, from participating in the conversation or even voting on it, from a legal standpoint.
Thank you for that clarification.
Your Councillor Surratt.
I guess I'll pass this on to our CAO. Would I be right in stating that that if you're in a town, in the town, a mayor would have possibly more work to do? Would that be a fair assumption, or not really? You could have the same work in a municipality. I guess when I look at it, then where you've got a lot more, maybe in a town it's more central, more in one cornered area compared to maybe a municipality where your geography is a lot more. And there's a lot more businesses in a town. This would make, I guess, the mayor maybe, I'm not saying busier, but because some towns the population is less in Argyll, let's say for Yarmouth, the town of Yarmouth, their population is a lot less, and 6,700 compared to our 8,200. But their stipend is a lot higher, and possibly in the town you'd have a lot more on the go, I guess. Maybe it's just a perception on my end, but it would seem to me anyhow.
It's hard to answer that question.
Yeah.
I would say that if I was to compare it, what I think that the municipality of Argyll's warden does, and I would say others as well, in the district of Argyll, is he while he attends a lot of the meetings that relate to municipality of Argyll work, he also attends a lot of the regional meetings.
Oh, yeah.
So there's that component. It's very difficult to compare apples and apples on this one. And the best we could do is take a look at what other people are doing. So if I look at the municipality of Argyll, and I see they're similarly sized in a lot of ways with what's listed, but we also own and operate an airport. We also are about to own and operate a ferry terminal. We do a lot of regional work. We're doing a lot of shared services work that, quite frankly, a lot of other municipal units across the province don't do. And so they might in fact be busier in a town elsewhere, in another location, doing other things. I think the role of the warden, especially for the municipality of Argyll, and perhaps more so in other regions, is the role is not only local. It's now broader. You know, so the expectation is that the warden actually do more work around the regional planning, and in fact, perhaps even participate more on the provincial level around that. Now, that wouldn't be any different than in any other situation provincially, but I think in this particular corner, I think there's a lot of regional work that we're not that both and that the mayor and the warden for the town and municipality of Yarmouth also participate in. So
In this end.
yeah. So
Thank you much.
Well-
You've clarified a question that I had didn't really think of personally, about maybe more of the shared. I somehow didn't overlook that. And I'm glad I asked the question, because it certainly clarified that point, which I personally had overlooked.
yeah. Okay.
Councillor Muse.
Just going back to whether we make a decision, are we looking for a decision here on, if we're making a decision, what are we deciding on? Are we deciding on increasing the stipend for our warden? And if that's what we're doing, I mean, there's 3 councillors here that aren't here tonight, that should we maybe wait till at least that we have more councillors in before we make that decision? Or is the councillors that are here comfortable in making that decision, just the people that are here? Just a question, that's all.
I guess my question is, are we looking at a percentage increase? Are we looking at a number increase? I guess that's up to council, but,
Yeah.
and maybe, maybe like Councillor Muse said, it might be best that we wait till everybody's sitting around the table, and, it is an important decision. It involves the whole municipality, every district. And it's probably important to have everybody sitting around the table. Councillor Surratt.
I was just gonna concur with Councillor Muse. I would feel better if everybody was here, which honestly, I would feel better if everybody was here.
And discuss,
Yep.
and discuss at least how we go about doing this. Do we look at a percentage? Do we look at a set amount? I mean, right now, we have figures that we're looking at, but we haven't discussed on how to deal with it, and I don't think I'd be ready to make a motion or to support a motion at this point until we know how we want to approach it.
Okay. Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, I see the average here is $31,764 if you average out the municipalities you used in the example. If you totaled up the whole population and divided that in, what would be the salary for the population of Argyle? Like do you know what I'm trying to say?
Average
I'm not an accountant.
population, average salary,
Yeah.
That's right.
So I get you.
So do you want, am I clear? Do you want an average population based on the
Yeah.
numbers that are here?
Yes.
Okay, I can do that.
You don't have to do it now,
Yeah.
well, you're an accountant, you're quick.
I'm,
Interesting.
I have a, I think, yeah,
I could see his eyes.
I wouldn't go that far.
All excited over that.
Oh, I got all excited. You made
Numbers.
me do math in the middle of a meeting. I'm excited. I can get that information to you in a bit, in like,
8351.
That's the average population?
so that's in fact.
He's organized, this man.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say I didn't even start, and he had it done. So that's very close to our population, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
interesting.
That's interesting
That's a
calculation.
very good, yeah, thank you, Richard, that's all right.
All right, so I don't think we.
So that number's pretty well bang on, that 31,700 something is based on population,
Yeah.
an average population of the sample municipalities you used.
Yeah. All right. So I think we decided to defer it to when all council is here. Is that what I hear?
Yeah.
Okay, and
certainly prefer
any,
that.
any more discussion on that one? Having heard none, I will pass the chair back to our warden, and we're 9G.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, third-party credit service fee bylaw. This is the first reading.
I think our deputy clerk will be taking this one if you,
Pardon?
I think the deputy clerk will be taking this one on if you don't mind.
Oh, okay. Chris, can you elaborate on this for us, please?
Mr. Warden,
Deputy Clerk?
if on 9G you see the attachment of the bylaw that is presented for the first reading, it is a bylaw that has been vetted through Rail, through the solicitor. Actually, he did quite a bit on it after I worked on it, so I thank him very much for that. The point of the bylaw is the service provider of our credit card service, requires us now to, or requests us now to have a bylaw to allow us to, as it says in the bylaw, accept a service charge, to be able to accept the service. So we, at the municipality, have a service charge of 3% to use credit cards. So now they would like us to have a bylaw just stating that we accept that we can take that service charge. I hope I made it clear.
The service provider is charging that, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's the
Is there a
3% charge
fee?
that we pay the service provider
Yeah.
to use credit cards here at the municipal office.
Yeah.
And now the company requests that we make a bylaw that,
Yeah, okay.
just to know that we accept that.
So do we pass a motion, or this is just the first reading?
Yeah, this would just be the first reading, so we'll go into the process of the bylaw approval, so the notice is in the Vanguard, in the papers and all of that, and then we'll come to a public hearing, and then we can approve the bylaw.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
As we were discussing this, Chris and I, one of the things that dawned on me was I was going to make a recommendation to ensure that on the bills, it be indicated that if so paid by credit card, that there would be a service charge. And Chris was very quick to respond back by showing me the language. It's already on the bill, and it's already indicated that there is a service charge that's above and beyond. So that's already there, and that's very good. So that was my principal concern here, because it's difficult to charge such a service charge and not declare it prior to. So I thought that was my only concern that I raised, and Chris was very quick in responding very right back to me. It's already there.
Okay, thank you.
Very good question, and just to mention also that the service charge is, as it says in the bylaw, determined by the third-party credit service provider, so that we didn't put the actual amount in there, because, I mean, it's determined by them and not us, so just to make that clear.
Okay. Deputy Warden?
Question that was asked of myself the other day about the tax sale and being able to use credit cards or not use credit cards. I guess this tax sale, I don't think we could use credit cards, is that correct?
I think is that correct?
That's correct.
We didn't, yeah.
Okay,
I
so,
think traditionally we haven't accepted credit cards for tax sale,
okay.
but
In the future, do we foresee being able to accept credit cards, or?
that's a good question. A really good question. I think some of that might actually come from the MGA around the restrictions. I'd have to look into that to give you an accurate response.
Okay, anyway, just if somebody
There-
asked me.
There was a reason. I can't recall whether it was a
Yeah.
good one or not. I think, I know the MGA has specific guidelines around that,
Yeah.
but I'd have to double
I think
check.
it had maybe, if I remember correctly, it had something to do with cash. It had to be cash or debit or a certified check.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
But I guess I'm not 100% sure whether that was an internal policy developed or whether that's actually, well, I know it's an internal policy, but whether that was developed internally and not influenced by the MGA, or in fact directly influenced by the MGA. I'll have to get back to you on that.
okay, thank you.
I can tell you that at foreclosure sales, which are similar processes, certified checks are required. Credit cards are not acceptable because it's a bid. And otherwise, if the bid is not honored, or if the bid is honored, then there's a service charge that has to be paid to the third-party provider. Well, then the owner of the property does not get the full amount, or whoever is conducting the bid does not get the full amount. And most of the time, it's government agencies. For example, foreclosure sales, it's the sheriff's department that's doing that.
Okay.
So, but I'm not saying I'm just saying that in that area, it's a certified check. It's 10% down and a certified check within 10 days or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Next item, Regional Climate Date Project.
Sorry, point of order, we would require a
Oh.
motion on that to move forward. Yeah, no, sorry, yeah, we would. It would be considered first reading, but the motion would be to consider first reading.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Regional Climate Date Project, Phase 2, Climate Date.
Data. You may want to click refresh on your agendas. And that should actually read data project.
Yeah, I got it
Yeah,
here.
when I read that, I thought it doesn't sound right.
It was an addition today, but you've seen most of this information. We wanted to get some input from you, and we did get some input from council around this. It's an unusual circumstance where I think council was supposed to be approached and wasn't. It was an oversight on the part of the organizational group. For those of you who have been here a while, you would remember that you approved the first phase of this project, which was a 2.5-year agricultural climate study collection data project.
Mr. App.
Correct, that's correct. So Mr. Atwood had done a report last year around the progress, and so now we're at 2.5 years. And so they wish to extend that to 5 years, and they also wish to extend the data collection types of sensors. So it's not just what they're actually collecting before, they're actually expanding the sensors to collect more data around climate-related information in the area. So this is a project that has multiple partners. The municipalities are committed, or this is a project that was created, I think, by CBDC. CBDCs actually have $15,000 confirmed funding in this project. Municipal at 52.5. The issue is that we're a little late in the gates in terms of being informed that they wanted funding for the second phase. It's kind of put the CBDC in a bit of a pickle because all the other funding partners are reliant on this package going forward. So I can confirm that all municipal units other than yourselves and Lunenburg have confirmed their portion of funding. What they are asking for is $3,000 in year 1, which would be next fiscal. Year 2, again, $3,000. And then 1,500, which would represent a half year for year 3. I understand that we could probably do that in a different order, which is to say that you could extend it. I understand that some municipal units have extended the time frame so that maybe give a little less at the beginning, a little more at the end, for example. We have told them that they must apply for the grants to organizations process because we're trying to follow our policy. And we're not actually asking you to disperse any funds at this time. However, what they're asking us to consider is whether or not we would pre-commit, right? So it does not fall under the definition of our exceptional circumstance. So we cannot entertain actually giving them the money now by policy, but we could, in theory, make a resolution or motion to confirm a commitment. I'm recommending that you consider doing that, only because all the other partners are lined up. and it could have a serious negative ramifications towards the project if we in fact decided that we would delay for any reason. It's put us in kind of an awkward position as council, it's put you all in an awkward position as council.
Like this at all.
But,
Just tomorrow.
but if you, I guess the question you should ask yourself is whether you believe in the project. And so that's perhaps where we need to, so that's unfortunately where we're at. It doesn't give us a lot of time. It didn't give you a lot of information to consider, unfortunately. But we're just reacting to the reality that has been provided to us.
Councillor Donaldson?
Yes, my question was basically answered. I was gonna ask if it was phase 2 of the project that Mr. Atwood was involved with. And that's basically what it is. And this phase is what, a $370,000 project?
Yes, sir.
And all the other funding's in place, except for 2 small contributions from 2 municipalities, if I understand,
That's correct.
us and Lunenburg. I'm with Guy Surratt on this one, Councillor Guy. I don't like it, but it's catch-22, I'd hate to see it fail because of us not reacting to it. So I'm gonna go with the suggested motion that council approves the requested financial support for the Shelburne County Business Development Center Limited in the amount of $7,000 and dispersed over, how you explain, three and 1,500 in the next 2.5 years?
What's your motion?
That's the motion.
Do you have a seconder?
Second motion.
Deputy Warden? Okay. Questions or comments? Councillor Surratt?
I don't remember now, when Mr. Atwood made his presentation, did we support them financially at that time? I didn't think there was a money asked, it was just a report.
Correct. When he made his report, I'm going to say it was a year ago.
About a year ago, yeah.
Yeah. It was not to request funding for the phase 2. I suspect there's a very good reason for that. They probably weren't ready to ask. But it was to give an update on the project that you had approved prior. I did ask Chris to find the, I'm just finding it now, to find the motion that was passed. This would have been in 2011, which was your original motion. And so it was moved that council approve funding in the amount of $1,500 starting in fiscal for a total of $4,500 to support this economic development project that fits in our strategic plan. So that was the original motion. Speaks not at all to the second phase, by the way. I'm just wanting you to be aware that that was the motion that was passed at that time. Whether that's relevant to you or not is.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, no, he did not ask for money at that time. He was giving us an update on where the project was stood.
Councillor Muse?
But did council or did the municipality, the council, was there any money in phase 1?
Yes.
There was. So it was supported in phase 1 with a
Correct.
contribution?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it was
Okay.
$4,500 you committed over 3 years, $1,500 a year for 3 years.
That's what
So-
I wasn't sure if that's what I understood.
Yeah, no,
what it
that's,
was.
and that's, that's why I knew I had a good reason why I would mention the motion. So that was the financial commitment at that time for phase 1. Now, clearly, we weren't fully aware of how many phases. My understanding is this is the final phase.
Yeah.
And it's more expensive because they have to add different sensors to it.
Yeah, I would go along with, since we supported phase 1, and this is the second phase, and if like Councillor Donaldson said, it would be a shame that it can't go through because we didn't support it, if all the rest are supporting at this point, or most everybody, so I would go along with that.
It is, I mean, it's big enough, but it's not a big contribution
No.
when you look at the total picture, the
exactly.
whole amount, percentage-wise. So we have a motion on the floor. All those in favour signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Motion carried. We had another 9I, Tittle Road. Councillor Surratt.
Yes, thank you. I'll explain a little bit what's going on. As most back roads, I'm sure, in the municipality and the county are in bad shape. It came to the situation on Sunday that we had to tow a couple of vehicles out of in the dirt road, in the dirt part of the Tittle Road. If an ambulance would have had to pass, I don't know what would have happened, if they could have made it in there. So I've had numerous calls from the residents who live down there, obviously. As we all know, they pay taxes, blah, blah, blah. So what I would like to do is, if council would permit and vote on this, or I'd make a motion on it, is if we write to the transportation TIR, I believe that would be Yarmouth, we send the request to, if I remember, Mr. Newell had said instead of sending it to Halifax, to send it to Yarmouth. And to request that either grading or some gravel be put on that road, or it's in such a deplorable state that, to bring it up, at least that they can pass. We've got 6 residents, and we've got 3 people that their cars are on the paved side. They can't drive at all. The bottoms are dragging and everything. The request was made by myself, by other people, by our MLA, and some of the people we called the highway shed, and the gentleman's on vacation, and that's in charge and can't get an answer. So we'd like to, I'd like to make a motion that we send a letter that action be taken to grade the road and to fix it so it's passable, for emergencies or for the residents to go in and out. You can't pass it at this time unless it's frozen solid, then you're able to pass, but otherwise, it's just you can't pass a good section of it. So I'd like to make a motion that we send a letter to TIR, to the engineer, and to request that grading be done and to fix the road ASAP.
You think we should have a motion to tell them what to do with the road, or?
That we ask them to do if they could. No.
We tell them to grade it, or?
Yeah, to get upgrade on the road ASAP, because the people can't pass. It's to that
Do
state.
upgrades to the road, or? Okay, thank you. Deputy Ward?
I'm just concerned with what you just told us, that writing a letter, well, before the letter gets there, I would get on the telephone tomorrow morning and I would call them right away to try to get them, if something does happen, there's a fishing wharf down there, there's boats down there, there's houses down there, there's property, if the fire department had to go down there,
Impossible. Not when it's,
Yeah.
not when the road, if the road was frozen, you can't pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, that's, tomorrow morning, get it done, get it fixed, we can't wait. If something happens,
A very good point. At this point, we need somebody else except myself. I need from council either to get Brenda, who's got some connections, to call or something for somebody to go down there.
Maybe you can get a letter and deliver it to them.
I can certainly would be.
Not put it in the mail.
Pleased to do that, bring it right down to them.
Yeah.
yeah,
If it was possible.
all right.
Yeah. Thank you.
So is the motion still on the floor?
Yes?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay? Motion carried.
As far as grading. Grading is not the.
No. That's what I'm saying.
You'll be
We
grading
shouldn't tell
mud.
them anyway
How
how to do their job.
But there are things that can be done
Yeah.
as a temporary fix, that at least it gets passable.
At least possible.
Yeah.
I tell you that there's not only the roads around here. I was in Ottawa last weekend. It's terrible out there too. Oh my God.
not gonna write a letter
Sure.
to Ottawa.
But we're not the only ones here. Correspondence and for information, Region of Queens Solid Waste Management Facility, fees. Guess they're increasing their fees.
Yeah, they increase it every year, Warden. This is for your information because it actually impacts the waste park.
Yes.
More so than, it indirectly impacts us. but it certainly
Yes.
discussed at the waste park.
Just for information. Okay. We have no decision to make there. UNSM press release, new Municipal Affairs Department. Yeah, we got this week, and I suggested that we maybe put this on the agenda. I think it's a real good move to have with Nova Scotia with a municipal affairs minister only, not looking at because I think with the way things are going in some of the small areas and the small towns and this and that, you're going to be very busy. I think it's a very good move, and probably we should send a letter, thank you, and congratulate Dan McDougall, who some of us know quite well. Used to work with the municipalities. He used to work for Guysborough,
Yes.
I think, CAO for Guysborough, you know. Well, he was here with the minister,
That's right.
yeah. So, whatever you think, if you want to. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Warden, you know, after seeing some of the messes that's happened, I say some, what happened is what's going on in Spring Hill, I don't think I'd be putting our CEO in a bind by asking him the question. I think I did email him on something. The sustainability factor. Now, what's the first word?
Fiscal.
The what?
Fiscal.
Fiscal
Fiscal.
sustainability factor. Would you mind maybe the people that will be watching this might just to give an indication, or the people here that don't know what that means? Did this, number one, just start lately because of some of the situations in the province, or has that letter been coming, or that form been coming to our municipality from the government?
First of all, the municipalities through Service Nova Scotia have put some effort in determining the, I guess, fiscal measures or ratios. So it's us bean counters, the nerds, like to call it ratios, also called fiscal indicators, and also called metrics. And it's basically, so a bunch of accountants get together and determine what are the most important drivers of information around municipalities. And so some of these have been around for a long time. So in terms of like debt ratio, there's certain debt to revenue ratios that are being calculated by the government. They actually won't allow you to borrow money beyond a certain amount. Because they decide based on that ratio that you can't afford to borrow. So that's used by Nova Scotia MFC, Municipal Finance Corporation. This initiative is probably 2.5 years old, and they've expanded it. So the fiscal indicators that we're looking at now, they're basically indicators of the fiscal health of the organization. And so the intention is to make it simple to read, for not just for the bean counters, but for the people making decisions. I mean, because the bean counters are just part of that decision-making process. So they basically say, you know, green, yellow, red, right? So there's a lot of like very quick ways to kind of look at it and say, okay, well, you might be in trouble here or there. Yeah. So just to talk about Argyle, Argyle is mostly green in terms of its fiscal measures. Yeah. There's a couple of areas that we need to work on that are in our control. And there's a couple of areas that are entirely, well, I shouldn't say they're entirely out of our control, but they are in fact happening whether we like it or not. And so one of the fiscal measures is actually the population. So if your population is declining, then your fiscal indicator will show if you're declining faster than what they expect an average decline would be, then you're like in the yellow. And if you're lower than your peers in Nova Scotia, rural peers, and lower than that number, then you're red. Okay, so that's how they're basically doing it. So they do, they look at budget accuracy, and they look at a bunch of different things. So I'm actually, they've asked the CAOs to provide input on these indicators, and I've provided input. I didn't like a couple of them. They had it wrong as far as I was concerned, but that's just my humble opinion. But so they've made certain changes to kind of make them better, and then, but you know, generally speaking, fiscally we are sound. You know, our auditors will tell us that every year. They do talk about our what they call net financial assets, which is the excess of asset over liability. We're very healthy there. And so from the perspective of other factors that we should be concerned about as council and as staff, one is the population decline, because that will have a negative impact on the long-term revenue stream of the organization. If people are leaving and they're leaving their houses behind, they're not being replaced, or if they're not being housed, obviously that's going to have an impact on market values. That is a reality that we've been dealing with for many years now, in terms of trying to address it, trying to mitigate, and really that's about job creation. So, and then the second piece was that we showed a little sensitivity was around receivables at the end of the year. And so they'd like us to be below 10%. And so, so we have achieved that last year, and we are improving. So we are moving in a positive direction in that area, and staff is very aware of that as being a priority in terms of a fiscal priority. But we're trying to balance that with the reality that we've had a couple of kind of bad years in the economy with the fishing. So we've accommodated that, and we've tried to help some of our residents make arrangements for payment that will save them money in the long term.
Thank you very much for that. I think that's very interesting.
Okay.
Councillor?
A couple
Donaldson.
questions on how they determine, for example, if you have declining population, does the provincial government adjust its funding on what our share would be for policing, or either to education?
Not based on population, but it would be based on uniform assessment primarily.
So that generally goes up even if you are losing population?
Yes.
Because assessment goes up every year by some small percentage.
Right. If
So will
you're,
we contribute more to those two while we still have a decline in population? Is that fair to say?
I think that's a fair statement, because there's typically a gap between losing your population and actually losing market value. So you could lose population and have the market value, you know, increase only slightly. I think what happens is, yes, the assessment probably has increased for most every year. There have been some blips. In fact, recently there was one where the market actually dipped a little bit, commercial perspective. But what it basically means is that what we don't know, what would be almost impossible to measure, is what would the increase have been in the assessment had we not lost the population. So in some situations, the calculation is very difficult to assess the kind of fiscal impact that it has. So in fact, we probably did get a savings in policing or in education, for example, but it would be difficult to measure that. Yeah.
But neither one of those are formulated in any way with population on our percentage that we pay? It's all assessment for policing and education?
I think education is based on uniform assessment and other factors. I don't believe population is factoring in that particular calculation. Okay. It might in fact be a factor in the provision of PVSC assessment services. So it depends on the provincial service that's being provided. They have different calculations. I think with policing there might be, I think the policing is based more on how many officers that you're actually engaging in your community. So each of them has a different calc, but I think education, there is no population influence.
So actually, we're not in complete control of this assessment that they do to determine your financial health, because those two factors are big items in our budget that we can't control, and if you're losing population, anyhow.
There's no
An answer.
Well,
I
there's
won't ravel on anymore.
Well, and I mean, I'm just to give you some perspective around that is there's probably I think we went over this last year's budget. There's, I think it was 30% of our total budget that's based on those very things that we cannot directly control. That it's a service that, whether we use or not, is available for our use, and therefore we pay. So PVSC, policing, and education, those three alone account for almost 30% of our total budget each year. Yeah. So it's a considerable amount. Yeah. And you know, the province attempts to utilize certain measures in order to determine your ability to pay. Now, that being said, if the standard expenditures are going negatively, you may in fact receive an additional equalization grant from the province. So we do actually get a revenue of about $150,000-ish a year from the province that represents equalization. So that if we were somehow falling to the wayside comparatively to others, that would increase, not considerably.
No.
But that number would increase.
It wouldn't make up the difference.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Interesting.
Okay. So, I guess we're down to 11, and we don't have any financial requests. Notice of motion, did we, 10B? Did we vote, or did we?
There was
we
no
did-
vote on that.
No, we didn't.
There was
There's
no
no
motion,
motion, do
no
we want to just do it? Do we want a motion, do we want to send a letter or
We'll send-
something, or nothing?
Sending a letter to Dan McDougall will probably do, but
Yeah.
I mean, to send it to the minister or to the premier, I think it should come from council,
Okay,
just because
yeah,
it's political.
Yeah, whether they want to or not, I don't know, it's up to council.
Yeah, I would certainly say that, why don't we send a letter that states that congratulations on what you've done, and, you know, I guess, and from the municipality of Argyle, we thank you for that consideration.
Okay,
I'd make that a motion.
I'll second it.
over in the seconder. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Notice of motion by councillors. Does anybody have a notice of motion for a future meeting? If not, we'll go into question period. Anybody have any questions? Yes,
Don't have a question,
No.
but I do have an answer to a question that was asked earlier, and I would like to, it might help staff or save staff some time, I would like to,
Okay.
Councillor D'Entremont's question on the payment of properties at a tax sale. Section 148, sub 1 of the Municipal Government Act reads as follows. Payment at a tax sale shall be by cash, certified check, money order, bank draft, irrevocable letter of credit, or lawyer's trust check, and not otherwise. Period.
okay.
That's why we paid the big buck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Figured it was
We
MGA.
can-
Thank you.
Section 148, sub 1.
We can pay you by credit card, right?
And I absorb the third party fee, believe me.
Yes, we have a question?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question about the, sorry, my voice is, yeah, 'cause I got a cold.
I mine too.
First, I'd like to congratulate on the council priorities document. I think that's a really good foundational document, easy for the layman to read, which I think is always important. Just curious though about what the follow-on processes are gonna be around that document. Will we see a roadmap? Are we gonna have objectives out of that then will track progress? Because, you know, it's just, I'm just curious about that process. Where will we be able to see what's happened to the ferries and as they're implemented, what stage and, you know, the satisfaction the council has and, you know, did we achieve that objective or that? what was
An answer for that?
Can I answer that question?
Yes, sir, you may.
Sir? That's an exceptional question. Staff has been talking about how to deliver that best. Actually, there's two documents that we're going to want to do this on. One would be on that document. The other is the strategic plan. And the answer is online. the answer will be on the website. And so what we'll do is, moving forward, there'll be quarterly updates provided to council, but those updates will essentially be live on the website as they occur. So at a picture in time, council will discuss them, but accessible to anyone at any time. So yeah, we appreciate that, because we obviously, we say we're going to do something, we'd like to measure that the fact that we got it done, and we're very conscious of that at staff level, and we think the best way to do it is web.
That's great, no, thank you.
Okay, thanks for the question.
Will that
Thank
be
you.
under council priority? How,
I think it'll actually find itself on the front page, or very quickly accessed from the front page, because I mean, if it's our guiding document, somebody who clicks www.com, we're going to want that to be very visible, very
Yeah.
visible.
Yeah.
So we haven't developed that yet, and but it will be developed shortly.
Thank you. Good question. Okay, if there's no more questions, I guess we'll entertain a motion to go in camera.
Motion to go in camera?
Second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
You tape on 7 minutes to do that.